ladies and gents. Now we are going to speak about Reform Age and Count István Széchenyi as a central figure, one of the central figures of the Reform period. This is the date of Reform Age. It's the first half of the 19th century. There are debates which is the first point of Reform Age. 1825 I'm going to speak about later, or 30 or 32 when the first Reform Diet was held, but every historian agrees that the Reform Age ended with 1848, which was the War of Independence, the revolution broke out in Pest. We are going to speak about the status of Hungary in this period, Széchenyi's young times when he was a young person, and we are going to speak about his program. This is the basis of this topic, and of course some practical activities he initiated in Hungary. So first of all, we must remember that Hungary is still part of the Habsburg Empire at the beginning of the 19th century, and during this period there were two emperors of the huge Austria and Hungary. There was Francis I until 1835, so he began the Reform Age, and Ferdinand V, who actually ended the Reform Age. There was growing absolutism in this empire, so there was no cooperation with the Hungarian estates and the nobility. So the emperor Francis I didn't want to cooperate with the Hungarians. There was no diet code since 1812, but in the 20s there were serious problems, not only in the empire but all around Europe. There were revolutionist movements, for example in North Italy, where the Habsburg Empire still had territories. So at the same time the nobility was disappointed because they couldn't have a say in politics, so reforms must have been carried out. Let's talk about the first diet that was called in 1825-27. So maybe this is the beginning of Reform Age, but let's talk about it. Well, on this diet there were no real reforms. This is why many historians believe that it's not yet the beginning of Reform period. But there was a demand that reforms are needed, and it was a great achievement that estate dualism returned, so the emperor and the Hungarian nobles started cooperation again, so the diet was called. But on this diet, this is why this diet is important for us, Széchenyi, a young count, offered 1 year income to establish Hungarian learned society. This Hungarian learned society was established to somehow help and preserve and examine the Hungarian language. But this society is said to be the predecessor of the MTA, a Magyar Tudományos Akadémia. So this person offered his 1 year income for this. Preserve Hungarian language. So this is where we meet Széchenyi the first time as an important person. Let's talk about himself. His family is a fantastic family, the Széchenyi family, with both A's written, as you see. He himself, Széchenyi István, never used the second A, he used an E, only an E. So he is Széchenyi Ferenc. He is the founder of the National Library, which is in the castle area in Buda. The National Museum, he laid down the foundations. And his mother is also important, Festetics Juliana, also a really wealthy Hungarian baron family. His uncle was Festetics György, who founded the Georgikon, which is a college of economy in Keszthely. So this family background is actually put down the basis of the activity of Széchenyi. This was always a loyal to court aristocrat family, so they wanted cooperation with Vienna. They had a lot of good connections with the court. Their family center was in the Nagyszánk Palace. Széchenyi got military education at the beginning, but he was not interested, as Other aristocrat young people, they spent a fortune on traveling. So when he was young, he traveled around Europe. And he had a great friend, Széchenyi Miklós. They traveled together. Greatest impact on Széchenyi was England, because in England at that time there was ready industrial revolution, fantastic achievements, there was capitalism, capitalist transformation, and there was the constitutional monarchy, which had nothing to do with the Hungarian situation with the emperor absolutism. So reforms were supported by the government, which he really loved, that these reforms are coming from above, so from the leadership. And there was a very wide middle class in England, so they lived in a good conditions. And he also said the other end. The other end of Europe was the Ottoman Turkish Empire, which was a contrast. And this was really underdeveloped, the despotic system of the Sultan, and there was no reforms. So Hungary's choice was made, had to be made. Széchenyi believed that here in the 19th century there are two possibilities for Hungary, going to the east or going to the west. And he believed that going to the west should be better for us. So Hungary's choice. Let's go on and let's see what he found out. Well, his reforms, he believed in an economic reform, just like in England. He said politics is not important, economy is important, so this will start civilian transformation as well. So there will be also political transformations through the economic reforms. He refused any violence, so he was absolutely against revolutions. When the revolution broke out in 48, Széchenyi actually disappeared from politics very soon. I mean, not when the revolution, but after when the War of Independence started, he absolutely left political life. So he believed that Hungarians must keep good relation with the court, with the Habsburgs, and reforms must come from above, from the leading layers. He believed that aristocracy is the perfect social layer for this. They must be the social basis for reforms. This was a conservative thinking. We should remember that conservatism is what Széchenyi really wanted, preserving old values, but reforms are needed. Well, he put down his ideas in the credit. The credit is his document he created. This is a theoretical work. This is where his program can be read. Problems reflected from economic point of view. As I told you, economic reforms he really wanted. He also, in the following years, in 31, he gave out the Light, Világ, and 33 Stages, where both other works deal with the same problems. And, as I told you, 1830 could be the beginning of Reform Age, because this is when Széchenyi gave out the credit. This had a very important effect on reformers. So he wanted to modernize his lands, his own aristocratic lands, of course, and the problem was that his feudal privileges were harmful for him because he couldn't get credit from the banks. Why? Because the banks knew that there was the law, aviticitas, or entailment law, since the 14th century, 1351, and this ensured the aristocrats that they keep their lands anyway, so they cannot sell or give away their lands. So the banks will not give you credit, because if you cannot pay, they cannot take your land. So the land cannot be taken from nobility. And there was also the fiscalitas law, that the courts get back the land if someone go bankrupt. He also said that the abolition of serfdom is needed, because we don't need serfs anymore. They must be transformed to be wage laborers. We have to give the right to the serfs to own lands. We don't need the sockage sockage robot where they work freely to the landowner, and actually they don't get payment. This was very old-fashioned in the 19th century, and it must be changed. So feudalism should end, and no more feudal privileges for anyone. Equality before the law is needed, and general taxation. Even the wealthiest people must pay tax, not only serfs. And he said that the development of infrastructure will start economy, and of course he also believed that the Hungarian language should be used in Hungary. So this is the basic of his ideas. No feudal privileges because he couldn't get credit. This is why the title is credit. What else happened? He had a friend Széchenyi. They had a lot of debates. Széchenyi was from a different background. They traveled together, and his friend came from Transylvania, and he was coming from a family where resistance towards the court was a tradition, and he had national feelings, and in many ways he opened the eyes of Széchenyi in connection with the problems with Habsburgs. But at the same time, Széchenyi had liberal reform ideas. While Széchenyi is talking about political changes, Széchenyi is talking about economic changes. But they affected each other, and the goals are the same: nation and progress, haza és haladás. Széchenyi also put down his ideas in a document. This is called the Prejudices in Hungarian balítéletekről. In this picture, you see the major difference between them: Széchenyi's political idea, Széchenyi's economic idea. Problem: Austria and Russia are threatening. He doesn't care about conflicts. He refused lower layers, only aristocracy is needed, and he said that wide range of people should be involved. He's talking about a lot of national feelings and trying to defend the Hungarian rights, while he didn't care about the historical problems. He just wanted nation and progress. So these are the two ideas. And of course, Széchenyi became the leader of these reform movements, and after his death, Kossuth Lajos took the leadership in the reformists. So we also have to mention him. He was younger but much radical, even radical than Széchenyi, and became the leader of the liberal opposition, as I told you, after Széchenyi. But they respected each other, I mean Kossuth and Széchenyi. The goal is the same, they admitted. Széchenyi criticized Kossuth openly. He didn't like his revolutionist ideas, and he said that it was dangerous because careful reforms are needed. And Kossuth was really polite and called him the greatest Hungarian, but he had absolutely different political ideas. He wanted revolution actually when the reforms didn't come. Kossuth had bigger social basis, so to tell you the truth, Széchenyi's modest and really moderate ideas were not so popular among young nobles and everyday people as the Kossuth idea. Kossuth became a greater leader than Széchenyi during the period. So this is his reforms and his main rivals. Let's talk about what he did. He dedicated a lot of money to invest in Hungary. His goal is to civilize the society. Actually, there were serious problems in the society concerning civilization. There was no capitalism. He wanted to introduce investments and banks, so the British model. He brought several novelties, I mean new things to Hungary to show the people that everything can be changed. He invested in infrastructure. The regulation of rivers started by him. He regulated the southern part of the Danube, Vaskapu, which is to the south from Hungary. At that time it was the southern borders of Hungary, and he wanted to make navigable Danube from the south to Vienna. Steamshipping, he brought the first steamship to Balaton, for example. National Casino was opened and horse races. These are both really popular in England, and this was the place where aristocrats met, so they could make business, change ideas. That was a great place to meet. This is why he introduced them in Hungary. We also have to speak about the Chain Bridge, his greatest project, the first permanent bridge over the Danube on the territory of Budapest. And he invested huge amount of money, and he raised money and called others to pay, and it was finally built. He also supported founding factories and banks. So actually he started the preparation of great development, but unfortunately this development he dreamt of could start only after the compromise of 1867. So Széchenyi couldn't benefit from his reforms, but he started it.